You might think your podcast success is all about downloads, but what if those numbers are hiding the real story behind your business growth? Listen in to learn more.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Today, you'll learn how to uncover hidden ROI in your podcast so you can forecast leads, predict growth, and make smarter marketing decisions. Virginia Elder from Podcast Abundance joins me to share how her podcast ROI tracker turns podcast data into business strategy. So, Virginia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I am excited to have you here. And of course, I'm doing podcasting and you're talking about podcasting. And I'm sure there are some people who are listening that are going to want to hear like these tips. And maybe they're just thinking of starting, maybe they've been doing it for a while, so I think it would be a fun conversation to have today to learn, just from your perspective, some things that can help us be even better in what we're doing. But I wanted to start off first by just saying, obviously, we know that business owners who are using podcasting are thinking, it's a way to get listeners. And you're saying it actually can help forecast leads. So how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. So I want folks to think about podcasting not just as a way to create content about your business or, if you have a plugin that pulls your podcast to your website, like, woo, now we have a blog post each week too. So content is awesome and it can do a lot to attract people to your business just for keywords and things like that. But with each podcast episode is an opportunity for you to actually connect with those listeners and have them take action toward entering your business ecosystem is the way that I like to phrase it. So typically that entry point is through a lead magnet and they are joining some type of email list where I hope you have at least a few emails set up to go out to them automatically in a welcome sequence is what that's called, where you're literally welcoming someone into your business. They haven't purchased yet, but you are giving them a few baby steps and a few connection points of what it might be like to work with you. So that entire sequence from your podcast episode to, hey, download this free thing, or maybe watch this free video, whatever your lead magnet is, to the few emails that they get after that, those are all like taste tests, right? So think about if you went to a really fancy restaurant and, the waiter brings around, a tasting board, basically, where you can literally pick and say, like, yes, I like the flavor of that steak, or no, I don't like the jasmine rice. So that is what you're doing with your podcast. If people like the flavor of the things you're giving them that are free in these like first few steps, the more likely they are to take more steps with you. Booking a call just from hearing someone's voice feels a little scary. It feels like you're going to get looped into something that you're not really sure if you even need. And so thinking about your listener to email subscriber journey is a way to like welcome them in that feels low lift, no pressure, easy and non-committal on their part, which is kind of funny because we do want them to commit eventually, but we need it to be easy and simple upfront. So that is how I would love for all business owners to like shift from thinking, oh, just create content as fast as I can, as much as I can each week, just say something, interview somebody, to how do I make this an intentional path into my business?
And if someone's listening and saying, well, I understand what you're saying, and I think I'm doing a little bit of that, but I don't want to be too pushy, either in a call to action. So how do I get someone to think about doing that without
Mhm.
coming across, as, sign up from the list. I want you to become my customer, so that they
Yeah,
still nurture them, but not feel that they're really pushing it onto them.
right. So again, with your calls to action, the positioning of it needs to not be convincing or like you don't have to make them fall in love with you on the first date, right? It's just a baby step. So take all the pressure off and you make just a simple, clear ask for them to do whatever it is, right? Like click the yellow button in the center of my homepage, whatever it is. Really simple step. It should take them 5 seconds or less to do. And when you're asking for them to click that button, you're telling them the benefits of what they're going to receive. So, whatever that free video that they're going to receive helps them do or think about, right? It relieves pressure, or it gives you the first 3 steps to your bookkeeping problem, or whatever, right? Whatever the thing is, position it as the benefit to them. And then just make the ask and make it really simple. You don't have to say why or back up how you created it or go into like the story, because that's how you feel like you're backpedaling and you're explaining yourself and you're like a child asking for a cookie, right? So just ask for the cookie. Say, may I have a cookie, please? That's it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, ROI obviously is important, and a lot of times people aren't thinking of using that to actually get the leads. They are thinking about download numbers and things like that too. And so, what should they be looking for besides download numbers? And we know that, over time, people are hopefully, getting that thing going into their, get that freebie, like you said, get the free video, and they can maybe
Mhm.
nurture them over time. But how are they going from just doing the podcast and putting content out there, like you said, they're doing, but using it, as a tool, right, to hopefully
Right.
nurture future customers? But how do they judge the ROI besides just looking at, a download number?
Right. Yes. Okay. So many people get stuck on vanity metrics. And we've heard that term a lot of times associated with social media, like your follower count or it used to be called something else and I've already lost track. But now we're talking about followers even in the podcast space. So they're not subscribers anymore because now that's a paid level of podcasting. But it really doesn't matter how many followers you have. Like you could have 20,000 people listen to your show every month, but if you're not getting any customers from it, what's the point? So what I want you to think about are your business's goals with the show, right? So, and they may not be direct. It may not be, I want, $5,000 in client purchases this month. It may be, I want 2 speaking engagements within the next quarter at like a local event of people that I can easily follow up with. Like you can get very specific with what you want for your business's goals. And I want to challenge you that whatever that path is that you want, what is the money associated with that? So maybe you don't get paid for that speaking engagement, but maybe 10% of the people that attend will book services with you. Maybe those speaking engagements turn into larger ones where, again, 10% of those people book with you. Something like that. Like figure out the path of how does this lead to money? And then you can back up and say, okay, so my call to action should be this. And my email sequence should say this so that I get to this goal. Now, in the confusion between the number of followers and like your business revenue and how many clients does that equal and things like that, there are other things that equal money to your business that doesn't actually pass through your fingertips. So think about things like backlinks. For example, if you, Candy, featured this on your website and linked to my business, I have earned a backlink, which would have cost hundreds of dollars for me to pay an SEO expert to build for me. Right? So there are other things that podcasting can do for your business, depending on your goals, that are valuable. But again, that money may not pass through your fingers. So think about things like that, even from your website, even when it comes from like a credibility perspective, you kind of can't buy enough credibility these days with AI and everything. So I have a whole list of ROI opportunities. It's a free download, like we talked about, and that is on my website. So I will offer that to your folks at the end. But that's a great tool to just be able to fill out that spreadsheet, delete the things that don't matter to you, and assign a value to the ROI pieces that do matter to you.
So when they have that, how do they assign that value then too? Like you're saying, sometimes it's not even money. Is it, just they're ranking it as what's important to them in general? That's not necessarily dollars related, or how do they use that?
Yeah, I would encourage them to assign a dollar value to it. So like if you could Google, or let's say you've worked with an SEO expert in the past, or you get a quote from one or whatever for the backlink example, I would put that value on the backlink. And anytime you have earned a backlink on someone else's website, I would, of course, after an episode's published, go and like find it and save that link to their page and whatever, so that you can reference it, confirm it's there. But then, okay, that's, a couple $100 or whatever it was that I've kind of earned in a way for my business. I know for the bookkeeper mind out there, it's so tough to think like, wait, this isn't real money. But it is a value that your podcast has created. So if you recognize that this spreadsheet is a little bit imaginary. Now, other line items could be very tangible, right? Like if you got paid $5,000 for a speaking gig and that is your rate, every speaking gig that you get is actual cash in the business, even if that's not your primary service that you're selling. You can be getting paid from your speaking engagement. So those are just 2 items, but there are like 50 items on this spreadsheet. But yeah, just Google around, get some quotes. With the AI features these days, you can say like, what is the typical cost of this thing if I had to hire an expert to do this for me or to place me at these events, things like that. And again, if that's your goal, right. I don't want you tracking 50 things. I want you to really narrow it down and say which things are important to you, and then track those.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of times people are putting out, episodes that they think are going to be important for those who are listening, but it's not always easy to tell if it's something that they're finding impactful for them. So do you have a way that they can determine maybe what's resonating with the listener so they can become potential clients too at some point, and drive that interest in their services?
Yeah, I love a good listener survey. Sometimes you might get crickets. Sometimes you might get some great responses. The more places you can post that survey, the more likely you are to get some traction on it. But think about, a few questions, right? Again, people don't want to go do too much work for free here. So think about like 3 to 5 max simple questions you can ask, and you can post them. Use the polling features on Facebook and LinkedIn. Maybe you could do a little video on Instagram or something like that where people are DMing you their answers. And then, of course, like say that you're doing this in your podcast episode, have the link in your show notes, and that be your only call to action for those episodes. And do it multiple episodes in a row because it takes people a while to actually do the thing. So Yeah, a good poll. And especially if you have email subscribers. And one of the questions on the poll for your email subscribers could be, are you listening to the podcast? What was the latest episode that you listened to on the podcast? And that way you'll find out, like, do my email subscribers that are already existing even have a clue that I podcast every week? There's a lot of information you can gather just from some polls.
Perfect. So, what are some signs in podcast analytics that might help predict future sales or lead flow?
Yeah. So, of course, the feature inside Apple Podcasts that shows you listener completion rate is really, really important. There's some great stats on YouTube as well. If you post your videos there, you can see the audience type, the ages, how long they listened, where they fell off, all kinds of information. So obviously, if someone is listening more than 50% of your episode length, so for example, you have a 40-minute episode, they listen for 20 minutes before they turn it off. Maybe 20 minutes is like your demographics, like ideal length. Maybe we think about shortening the episodes. But what that would tell me is that, okay, we have to make sure that if I have a long episode, I need a little either like an ad spot, or I have to put something in the intro that gives my call to action so that at least I know that everyone heard it, so that we're not waiting all the way to the end to just ask them to do something. So that would be a really important piece.
Well, speaking of those ad spots or things too, I know there are things you can do where you're submitting your episode to, you can say, oh, I want to insert at the beginning or the middle or the end, of those shows. But a lot of people don't know about those type of things as well. So do you want to touch on that? Like, what could they use to put in those little spots that will automatically go into their episodes and can be updated dynamically?
Yeah, thank you. So you're talking about dynamic insertion. And for a while, Captivate was the only host account that did that. But now we have Buzzsprout and several others that allow this dynamic insertion piece. So it's basically where you, after the fact, can record a little ad, like your own commercial for your own business, or really for your own lead magnet is what I would encourage folks to do. And you can decide where per episode you want that little ad inserted in your content. So we are specific per episode where we're looking for like a great breaking point of the content. So we don't like insert it in between like middle words or in between somebody's breath or at a point that doesn't make sense. So you have that power and freedom to listen to your old episodes and say, okay, like this one, 8 minute, 50 seconds. The next one, the ad's at 10 minutes, 25 seconds. And per episode, you can put like a customized timestamp in there where this ad should go. And then in the future, if like your lead magnet changes and you decide there's something else more powerful, you can record a new episode and just swap that ad spot out. And so it's just like a really powerful tool where you can talk about an upcoming event, a new lead magnet, a new offer, whatever's going on, so that your call to action in your episode is always current. And before this was available, what you said in the episode was permanent, and maybe some of your old episodes have links that don't even work anymore. So this really helps us out and fixes that issue.
Perfect. Well, I know you talk about podcasting being more efficient than other, content channels. So why is it such a time saver?
Yeah. So I love to think about podcasting as like the central hub of your content, because like right now, what we're doing, sitting here recording, you're asking me questions, I'm answering them like off the top of my head. And what you receive after this recording is done, you can repurpose it everywhere. So by spending this one time 30-minute block together, we both could potentially repurpose this into like 50 plus pieces of content, depending on how creative we wanted to be, depending on if we saved the video, depending on if we maybe popped the recording into some AI platforms and asked it to create all kinds of different assets for us, depending on what we like for our business. There's so much you can do. So rather than spending the brain power to think of like, what could I say today in 60 seconds or less on video for Instagram? I only have to think maybe 5 times a month about what I'm going to say. And that would produce more than enough weekly episodes. And I could get those 60-second clips out of my episode. So again, AI is very helpful as far as like chopping it into reels. On my team, we do have a dedicated reel editor that goes in and like manually selects the best piece and makes us look nice and not all choppy. But whether you're thinking about reels and shorts for social media or YouTube, I also want you to think about blogs, newsletters, various written pieces of content, threads. AI is great at creating threads out of your podcast episode. So depending on what platforms you want to repurpose it on, I mean, you can pull, for example, a blog post could be created off of every question you've asked me today and my answer. So however many pieces of content that could be, it really saves you time. And then the use of AI is wonderful these days. Now, one caveat there is I am going to recommend you never, ever, ever just copy and paste whatever blog or newsletter or whatever that AI writes. Definitely proofread it. Definitely tweak some language in there to make it actually sound like something you would say and to infuse your business's keywords and perspective and methodology into those posts.
So when you talk about, the reels and all the things that you could be doing with it, you could take this 30-minute podcast and break it up into 50 little pieces, but do you have a recommendation for even length that will help grab the attention for people? Because obviously we know like people like things very fast, but sometimes you can't get enough information in a 7-second clip or something too, but is there, ideas in terms of stories should be this long or reels should be this long, or obviously blogs, you're going to be, taking the content and writing it. Maybe that's 300 to 500 words, whatever that is. But do you have maybe some guidelines for someone who's not quite sure what they should be doing with their content?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, you've got the platform limits to think about, whether you're limited to 60 seconds or 90 seconds, depending on your account. But I'm going to say that your clip should be as long as it is interesting. If you feel like either you as a host or your guest kind of didn't get the question out efficiently enough or didn't answer efficiently enough, I'm going to suggest more highly editing that clip so that because people are really impatient when it comes to social media, especially those short videos. They're like, give me the answer. So those are going to be like a very highly edited piece of repurposing, which does require a bit of time and sometimes a very steady hand. But that's where I tend to lean more into like the written pieces of repurposing, because you can really take the time to edit those items, read them over, infuse your brand's language in those. So if you're not fully comfortable with video or Instagram or YouTube Shorts or whatever, dabble with it, make it as interesting as possible within that clip. Even if you took your opening question and your guest looped back to it in the end of the episode and you put those two together, if that's like a really impactful, interesting clip, do that. Like it does not have to be a straight 60 seconds. But if you're not comfortable with that, I would start with the text version of repurposing and, work on your website and things like that.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, this has been interesting. I'm sure people are like, wow, like I didn't think about using a podcast in this way, right? I just
Mhm.
knew content and, all the little things that you do to promote it too. So I appreciate your, sharing. I do know you mentioned earlier that you do have this tool that you want to share. So I would love to ask again for you to share specifically what that is and how can they access that? And if they have other questions, how can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed your questions. So thank you for asking away. The ROI tracker is specifically for podcasters. It is a free spreadsheet download. And of course, you're going to end up on my email list. So you can actually experimentally decipher my emails and learn from them, pick out what you like and don't like. The ROI tracker is at podcastabundance.com/ROI tracker. And if you just end up on podcastabundance.com, you can go to the resources page and find it. There's lots of free stuff there. But ROI tracker is the end of the URL there. And where folks can book a call with me is at talktovirginia.com. So my name is Virginia. Talktovirginia.com, and there are various podcast clarity calls is the one that I'm going to recommend that you book, and you can just ask your questions, and I will do my best to give you a clear direction and set of instructions by the time our call is finished.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my show, Virginia, and talking on this topic. I know it's very interesting for people to hear and something they probably don't always actually hear the information on. So I'm so glad you were able to share it today.
Thank you.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.